Let's shatter the myth that you've already seen the best the Wild West has to offer. Hollywood's golden age was cranking out black and white westerns faster than a six-shooter on payday, and some of the true heavyweights are still missing from your watch list. You think you know westerns? Think again. These films aren't just about tumbleweeds and shootouts. They're about justice, betrayal, and the darkest corners of the American dream. Which one will surprise you the most? Stick around. You're about to find out. The Oxbow Incident, 1943. There's nothing clean about the Old West in the Oxbow Incident. Forget the classic good versus evil tale. This is mob justice at its rawest and most disturbing. Henry Fonda walks into a Nevada town just in time to see a posse whipped into a frenzy over a murder that may, or may not, have even happened. The law is a rumor, conscience is an afterthought, and a rope is the solution. What follows is a lesson in how a desperate crowd will trample over justice, fueled by paranoia and self-righteousness. Director William Wellman wastes no time rubbing your face in the dirt. The camera lingers on every bead of sweat, every twitch of anxiety, every unspoken doubt. The suspense doesn't come from the promise of a heroic showdown, but from the sickening dread that the so-called good guys might actually be the villains. And there are no white hats in this crowd. The film strips away the myth of Western justice and shows us the ugly truth. Sometimes, the only thing separating a hero from a murderer is who's holding the rope. When the dust settles, you're left with questions that stick like spurs in your side. Did they get it right? Did it even matter? Fonda is the moral compass, but the compass is spinning. No other Western from the decade, and maybe ever, captures the sickening power of a crowd gone wrong like the Oxbow Incident. If you think old Westerns were all about honor, saddle up. This one will knock you flat. My Darling Clementine, 1946. My Darling Clementine is John Ford at his most stripped-down and myth-busting, turning the legend of Wyatt Earp into a cinematic ghost story. Henry Fonda plays Earp not as a gunslinging avenger, but as a quiet force trying to find justice in a murky, lawless world. Tombstone isn't just a setting. It's a character on a knife's edge, and the classic OK Corral shootout is given a grounded, almost mournful weight. Fonda's restraint lets the tension build until it's nearly unbearable. Linda Darnell, Victor Mature, and Walter Brennan fill out a cast with grit to spare. Ford's camera lingers on every shadow and silent stare, making the landscape do half the storytelling. This is no simple tale of fastest guns or easy answers. It's about what it costs to do the right thing in a world built on violence, and what you sacrifice along the way. For Westerns that dig deep, My Darling Clementine is an elegy, a warning, and a masterpiece rolled into one. The Westerner, 1940. The Westerner is what happens when courtroom drama crashes headfirst into Western grit. Gary Cooper, with his signature cool, faces off against Walter Brennan's legendary hanging judge, Roy Bean, a villain charming enough to buy you a drink and send you to the gallows. Brennan's Oscar-winning performance delivers both menace and wit. What makes this Western shine is its playful twisting of expectations. Cooper's Cole Hardin is no blameless hero. He's a quick-talking drifter who lands between feuding ranchers and winds up a pawn in a fight over land and pride. It's a movie that knows the West was won with trickery and survival instincts as much as with gunfire. Director William Wyler lets sly humor bubble up, especially in scenes between Cooper and Brennan. The real tension isn't just in shootouts, but whispered threats and uneasy alliances. By the end, you realize justice here is never simple or free. The Westerner isn't the clean-cut cowboy tale. It's sly, sharp, and stands apart as a Western for anyone tired of black and white morality. Red River, 1948. Let's talk about the psychological heavyweight of Westerns, Red River. John Wayne dials up the intensity as Tom Dunson, a cattle baron, whose iron will borders on tyrannical. Opposite him is Montgomery Clift as his adopted son, and their relationship simmers with all the tension of a powder keg about to blow. Think the West was just about herding cattle? Try leading 1,000 miles of stubborn men, and then throw in a family feud that could explode at any moment. Director Howard Hawks turns every mile into an epic, with stampedes, river crossings, and enough showdowns to satisfy any action fan. But the real drama is the psychological battle between Dunson and his son. Is Wayne's Dunson a visionary, or simply a tyrant desperate for control? Is Clift's character a hero standing up for what's right, or a traitor haunted by his own conscience? There are no simple answers here, just a steady march toward a final, emotional reckoning. What's stunning is how modern it all feels. This isn't just a fight over land. It's about legacy, identity, and what it means to be a man. Wayne goes deep into darker territory, while Clift's magnetic performance hints at the future of movie stardom. Critics, and even John Ford, couldn't ignore Red River. If you want a Western that goes beyond the dust and gunfire, this is your ticket. The open range never looked so dangerous, or so personal. Fort Apache, 1948. If you crave Westerns with spectacle, heartbreak, and a splash of revisionist history, They Died with Their Boots On is your perfect ride. Errol Flynn jumps into the boots of General George Armstrong Custer. Yes, the doomed legend himself, with wild charisma and a flair for last stands. This movie charges through historical fact like a herd of wild horses. But honestly, who cares when the adventure is this thrilling? Flynn is a force of nature, charming, impulsive, and racing headlong into disaster like it's his calling card. Olivia de Havilland anchors the story with emotional weight. But at its core, this is Custer against the world. Politicians, his own men, and the heavy hand of history. The script plays loose with details, but it nails the big emotions, turning Custer's downfall into pure operatic tragedy. Director Raoul Walsh shoots every cavalry charge like a thunderstorm, and the climactic last stand at Little Bighorn is staged with chaotic energy and awe. There's zero subtlety, but that's the point. The West here is larger than life. Every moment cranked up to 11. If you're after gritty realism, this isn't it. But if you want heartbreak, heroism, and Hollywood myth-making at its most bombastic, this film delivers in spades. They Died with Their Boots On is messy, unforgettable, and exactly the kind of legend Westerns were made for. They Died with Their Boots On, 1941. Now, if you're the kind of Western fan who craves spectacle, heartbreak, and a dash of revisionist history, They Died with Their Boots On is your jam. Errol Flynn, always ready for a last stand, takes on the role of General George Armstrong Custer. Yes, that Custer, he of the doomed charge and the golden hair. The movie barrels through the facts with the subtlety of a stampede, but who cares when the ride is this wild? Flynn is a force of nature, charming, impulsive, and barreling headlong toward disaster like he's allergic to self-preservation. Olivia de Havilland is there for the emotional stakes, but the real drama is Custer versus the world, against politicians, against his own men, and ultimately against history itself. The script throws accuracy to the wind, but the emotional truth lands hard. Custer's fall isn't just a battle, it's a full-blown operatic tragedy. Director Raoul Walsh turns every cavalry charge into a thunderstorm, and the finale, the infamous last stand at Little Bighorn, is staged with a combination of chaos and awe that'll have you gripping your seat. There's not a whiff of subtlety, but it works. The West, as Hollywood imagined it, was always larger than life, and They Died with Their Boots On doesn't shrink from myth-making. It dives in headfirst and dares you to look away. If you're here for gritty realism, move along. But if you want your Westerns with a side of heartbreak and heroism, this one should be front and center on your list. It's messy, it's bombastic, and it's impossible to forget, just like the legend it brings to the screen. Angel and the Bad Man, 1947. Who ever thought John Wayne could play it tender? Angel and the Bad Man takes the Duke out of his gunslinger comfort zone and lands him in a world where kindness, rather than bullets, might actually win the day. Wayne's Quirt Evans, an injured outlaw, is taken in by a Quaker family who live by peace, not pistols. Gail Russell's Penelope, the Quaker daughter, is just as tough as Wayne, but without the bluster or bravado. This isn't your typical Western full of barroom brawls and high noon duels. Instead, we're treated to quiet scenes around dinner tables, whispered debates on forgiveness, and the slow, subtle transformation of a hardened man. Director James Edward Grant lets these changes breathe, building tension not through gunfights, but through the threat that violence always lurks just beyond the door. What really stands out is Wayne's transformation, more a battle of spirit than of fists. He doesn't change overnight. It's a struggle fought in glances and silences, where the greatest danger might just be letting your guard down. The threat of violence hangs heavy, but it's the power of kindness and the hope of redemption that truly steal the show. Angel and the Bad Man proves a Western can pack a punch with its heart, not just its holster. If you want to see Wayne's softer side, without losing his edge, this is a must-watch. The Mark of Zorro, 1940. Before Batman, there was Zorro, the original masked crusader with a rapier and a revolutionary cause. Tyrone Power dazzles as Don Diego Vega, the seemingly bored aristocrat who becomes a nighttime avenger to fight corruption in old California. What you get isn't just a swashbuckler, but a Western loaded with wit, daring swordplay, and a sense of justice as sharp as Zorro's blade. Power's transformation from privileged fop to daring hero is a blast to watch, and his chemistry with Linda Darnell keeps things sizzling. Basil Rathbone's villain is delightfully hiss-worthy, setting the stage for some of the most exhilarating duel scenes ever put to black and white. Director Ruben Mamoulian brings energy and style, turning every sword fight into a dance and every escape into pure movie magic. Zorro's iconic Zed, slashed into walls and villains alike, is still pure cinematic gold, and you can see the influence on every masked hero who came after. Forget dusty, plodding westerns. This one is all about speed, flair, and revolutionary spirit. The Mark of Zorro isn't just a hero's origin story. It's a shot of adrenaline straight into the genre. Put this on your list and watch the legend come to life. Yellow Sky, 1948. Who says westerns can't be noir? Yellow Sky takes a classic outlaw story and soaks it in shadow, suspicion, and betrayal. Gregory Peck is Stretch, a bank robber fleeing across the desert with his gang, only to find refuge and trouble in a deserted ghost town inhabited by a tough, rifle-toting woman, Ann Baxter, and her grandfather. The land is as unforgiving as the characters. The gold in the town's ruins sparks greed and double crosses, pushing everyone's morals to the breaking point. Director William Wellman bathes every scene in moody black and white, making the ruins and dunes feel just as dangerous as any gunslinger. The chemistry between Peck and Baxter sizzles, but it's the constant shifting of loyalties and motives that keeps you guessing. Trust is in short supply. Everyone's hiding something, and the suspense is as thick as the desert heat. Yellow Sky stands out for its tough, almost primal edge, stripping away romance and showing just how raw and desperate the West could get when survival's on the line. If you want a Western that's part heist, part psychological thriller, and all grit, Yellow Sky is a must-see, buried treasure. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon, 1949. Don't be fooled by the Technicolor title. She Wore a Yellow Ribbon has all the soul of a black and white classic. John Wayne stars as Captain Nathan Brittles, an aging cavalry officer facing retirement and one final near-impossible mission: to keep peace between warring native tribes and the U.S. Army before it's too late. Director John Ford's sweeping landscapes and stormy skies give the film a mythic power. Wayne, far from his earlier one-note heroes, brings real melancholy and gravitas, surrounded by a strong ensemble. Victor McLaglen, Joanne Drew, Ben Johnson. The film leans into themes of leadership and the burden of doing the right thing in a world full of wrong turns. It's about letting go of an era, the pain of goodbyes, and the dignity found in duty, no matter how hard the road. This isn't just about battles and bravado. It's about the loneliness of command, the price of peace, and the beauty of riding off into the sunset with scars and wisdom. For anyone who wants their westerns with heart, nostalgia, and a sense of ending, She Wore a Yellow Ribbon is a must-see legend. Duel in the Sun, 1946. Welcome to the wildest fever dream Hollywood ever passed off as a Western. Duel in the Sun isn't just a movie. It's a technicolor thunderstorm of lust, violence, and sweaty melodrama baked under a merciless sun. Jennifer Jones is Pearl Chavez, a mixed-race outsider whose life unravels the moment she steps onto the sprawling McCanley's ranch. Gregory Peck and Joseph Cotton are the battling brothers, one simmering with danger, the other simmering with envy. Pearl is the spark that sets their world ablaze. From the start, this film was a scandal magnet. Critics dubbed it morally unfit, censors fumed, and audiences flocked to see what could possibly cause so much fuss. Director King Vidor turns up every dial. Love scenes crackle with danger, fights rattle the screen, and even the deserts look ready to combust. Subtlety? Not here. But beneath all the fireworks, Duel in the Sun wrestles with race, belonging, and violence at the heart of the American dream. Jones isn't just a victim. She's a storm, demanding dignity in a world bent against her. Peck is magnetic as the wild brother, every stare and sneer loaded with threat. It's messy, loud, and occasionally bonkers, but that's exactly why it's unforgettable. If you think all classic westerns are about clean-cut heroes and tidy morals, this film will blow up your expectations and maybe make you question everything you thought you knew about the Old West. The Gunfighter, 1949. Forget the myth of the legendary gunslinger. The Gunfighter digs deep into the heavy cost of that reputation. Gregory Peck delivers one of his best performances as Jimmy Ringo, a weary, infamous fast draw who's as much a prisoner as a legend. He rides into a dusty town hoping for a peaceful reunion with the woman he left behind, but peace is impossible. Word of his presence spreads, and every reckless kid with a chip on his shoulder wants to be the man who outdraws Jimmy Ringo. Director Henry King builds a tight, tense atmosphere. Almost all the action unfolds over a single day. The saloon becomes a pressure cooker as old enemies, trigger-happy challengers, and nervous townsfolk circle ever closer. Peck gives Ringo depth, a man who's tired of violence, desperate for a normal life, but chained to a reputation he can't outrun. The film's black and white cinematography heightens the mood, turning every glance and pause into a potential showdown. The Gunfighter isn't just about guns. It's about regret, isolation, and the burden of being a legend in your own lifetime. If you're looking for a Western that's more about consequences than quick draws, this one is a brooding, essential classic. Colorado Territory, 1949. Take a classic crime noir, drop it in the rugged American West, and you get Colorado Territory. Joel McCrea is Wes McQueen, a hardened outlaw planning one last train heist with everything, freedom, love, and survival, on the line. But the West, as always, has other plans. Director Raoul Walsh, who helmed the original High Sierra, injects noir darkness into every canyon and hideout. The film brims with tension, betrayals, doomed romance, and the ever-present threat of the law. Virginia Mayo's Colorado. Carson is no damsel. She's tough, wounded, and fiercely loyal, adding emotional gravity to McQueen's journey. What makes this Western stand out is its sense of fatalism. The characters are all running from something, past mistakes, heartbreak, the inevitability of betrayal. Even the love story burns with the knowledge that the West rarely allows happy endings. Colorado Territory is grim, suspenseful, and unflinching. No heroes, just survivors playing a losing hand. If you crave Westerns with noir bite and tragic edge, this one's a ride through the shadows you won't forget. Three Godfathers, 1948. Three Godfathers delivers a Western redemption tale with a spiritual core. John Wayne, Pedro Armendariz, and Harry Carey Jr. play three outlaws on the run across the desert, only to stumble upon a dying woman and her newborn baby. With her last breath, she makes them promise to save her child, transforming three bandits into reluctant protectors. John Ford's direction is lyrical and heartfelt, turning the harsh landscape into a proving ground for decency and hope. The baby isn't just a burden, it's a test of character, forcing each man to confront his past and ponder the kind of legacy he'll leave. Wayne balances roughness with real tenderness, and the journey is full of danger, temptation, and tough choices. Ford weaves Christian allegory into this survival trek, suggesting that even those with checkered pasts can find redemption if they fight for it. It's not just about gunplay or grit. Three Godfathers is about compassion, sacrifice, and the chance for a second act. If you want a Western that offers hope and a bit of grace amid the dust and heat, this is a miracle on the frontier. The Outlaw, 1943. Want a Western that broke every rule and had censors in a sweat? The Outlaw, produced by Howard Hughes, is infamous for Jane Russell's sultry debut and a plot that's pure pulp. Billy the Kid, Doc Holliday, and Pat Garrett locked in a web of betrayal, jealousy, and slow-burning romance. What's most memorable here isn't just the love triangle or the boundary-pushing innuendo, but the way the film pulses with tension. Hughes doesn't shy away from long, smoldering glances, moonlit gunfights, and sudden outbursts of violence. Russell's Rio is wild and unpredictable, a woman as untamable as the West itself. Under all the controversy, there's a clever, almost self-aware sense of humor. The movie pokes fun at cowboy macho posturing and isn't afraid to twist expectations about love, loyalty, and legend. The relationships are messy, the violence sudden, and the genre's rules get tossed out the saloon doors. Whether you love it or hate it, The Outlaw is a slice of Western history that's as scandalous as it is influential. And you won't forget it. The Big Cat, 1949. Who needs a gunslinger when nature itself is the menace? The Big Cat ditches outlaws for a killer mountain lion terrorizing drought-stricken Utah. Lon McAllister plays Danny, a city boy caught in rural feuds and forced to grow up fast when livestock and lives are threatened by the prowling beast. Director Phil Carlson uses black and white cinematography to make the land look as wild and unpredictable as the mountain lion itself. The animal isn't just a menace, it's almost mythic, representing all the pent-up rage and survival instincts of a land pushed to the brink. The tension peaks in moonlit chases and nerve-wracking hunts, giving the film a suspenseful edge most Westerns never touch. But this isn't just about the hunt. It's a coming-of-age story as Danny transforms from tenderfoot to tracker, finding courage in the face of primal danger. Rivalries among farmers and cattlemen add extra pressure, making the fight for survival both personal and communal. If you want a Western where the greatest foe has fur instead of a six-shooter, The Big Cat is a wild ride that proves sometimes the most gripping battles are against the untamable wilderness. Ramrod, 1947. Ramrod throws a film noir shadow across the open range. Joel McCrea's Dave Nash gets pulled into a ranch war where nothing is simple and nobody is innocent. Veronica Lake's Connie Dickinson is the true wild card, a femme fatale willing to bend anyone or any rule to hold on to her land. Director Andre de Toth uses sharp dialogue, betrayal, and simmering vendettas to turn the West into a tangle of moral ambiguity. Connie manipulates, seduces, and double-crosses, while Dave tries to stay honorable in a world that keeps getting darker. This isn't about shootouts at high noon. It's about power plays, personal loyalty, and the twisted choices people make when they're desperate. Lake gives a layered performance, shifting from vulnerable to ruthless, while McCrea brings gravitas as the man caught in her web. If you're after a Western that feels like a smoky noir thriller, Ramrod is where the cowboy myth meets hard-boiled reality, messy, tough, and unforgettable. Blood on the Moon, 1948. Blood on the Moon plunges you into a Western drenched in paranoia and betrayal. Robert Mitchum is Jim Gary, a drifter caught in a brutal range war where trust is scarce and double-crosses are the norm. Director Robert Wise cranks up the tension, using shadowy, rain-soaked visuals to make every corner feel dangerous. This isn't a story of heroes and villains. It's a tense chess game where every alliance is shaky and everyone has secrets. Mitchum's Gary tries to play neutral, but the West doesn't let anyone sit on the fence for long. Soon, he's forced to pick a side, and the violence that follows is raw and unforgiving. What sets this film apart is its blend of Western grit and film noir atmosphere. The characters are all running from their pasts, and even friendships are a gamble. The climactic fight scenes are as muddy and brutal as any showdown in the genre. Blood on the Moon is for anyone who wants their westerns dark, dangerous, and full of psychological twists. It's proof that the frontier could be just as treacherous as any city street. Pursued, 1947. Meet the first true psychological western. Pursued stars Robert Mitchum as Jeb Rand, a haunted man running from childhood trauma and a curse that won't let go. Director Raoul Walsh uses stark shadows and dreamlike flashbacks to make the New Mexico landscape feel like a waking nightmare. The story is as much about fate and guilt as it is about survival. Jeb can't outrun the violence that shaped his life, and every relationship is strained by secrets and suspicion. Judith Anderson chills as the vengeful matriarch determined to see him destroyed, while Teresa Wright offers a glimmer of hope. Walsh's film blurs the line between Western and film noir, loading every scene with dread and emotional intensity. Mitchum's performance is raw and compelling, a man driven as much by his own inner demons as by enemies on the outside. If you want a Western where the real battle is inside the hero's head, Pursued is a gripping, intense ride through memory, destiny, and the high cost of redemption. Winchester 73, 1950, filmed in 49. Technically released in 1950, but filmed in the last days of the 40s, Winchester 73 crackles with the energy of a classic black and white Western. James Stewart stars as a determined man chasing the legendary rifle that gives the film its name, and each new owner is drawn into a web of violence and obsession. Director Anthony Mann reinvents Stewart as a hardened, almost desperate anti-hero. The rifle passes through the hands of thieves, outlaws, and dreamers, each story building tension and drama as the chase continues. Shelley Winters and Dan Duryea add firepower to a sharp supporting cast. More than just a pursuit, the film is about how ambition, revenge, and fate bind these characters together. Mann's direction keeps the suspense high and the confrontations personal. Winchester 73 marks the dawn of the adult Western, bringing more grit, complexity, and darkness to the genre. If you want to see the frontier myth evolve, this film is the perfect closing shot. So how many of these black and white classics did you already have on your watch list? Odds are, at least a few slipped right past you. That's the wild thing about the Old West. It's bigger, stranger, and more complicated than the legend lets on. If any of these films surprised you, challenged you, or just made you hungry for more, hit like, drop your favorite in the comments, and subscribe for more forgotten legends. The frontier's not done with you yet.